I've spent the last couple of years living in a van and making it my mission to visit all US national parks. There are 63, I've been to 39, I've lived in one, I've worked in one. They are some of the most beautiful and unique places in the United States, and they are what makes this country awesome. I'm talking the mountains of Yosemite, the dunes of White Sands, the plants in Joshua Tree, the salt flats of Death Valley, the expansiveness of the Grand Canyon, the crystal waters of Biscayne. I could seriously go on, and how cool is it that with the National Parks Pass, we can go to any of these and just hang out. I personally have a little ritual when I go to one. First things first, I always get a picture with the iconic sign. I think it's so fun to have a picture with this every time. I also like to collect the little maps when you go through the gate. I have a ton of them. And I always hit the visitor center. I love looking at a good exhibit. I love to learn, and sometimes they have those little movie theater rooms where you can go and watch a nerdy little video. Sometimes they're like absolutely ancient, and I love it. The visitor center is also where you can talk to a ranger. They can tell you all the best hikes to do, and especially if you're in a time crunch, it's awesome to ask them what you can't miss before you leave. The visitor center typically has a bookstore or a little gift shop, and this is typically where I try to buy my patch. So I collect patches from every national park that I go to, and I put them on this jacket. I've kind of run out of space, and I'm always behind on putting on patches because I sew them on by hand, but I love this thing, and you get the gist. I love the parks. And when I'm actually in the park, I love to go hiking, backpacking, swimming. I also like laying down, snacking, eating, chilling, and mostly just staring and being amazed at beautiful things. It's my favorite thing. You can climb hard mountains and do hard things in these places, but you can also just go and enjoy yourself. This is where we get to go, and we get to be outside and just have fun. So you can tell that I'm a big fan of the national parks, but I'm not the only one. In fact, national parks are one of the few things that most Americans can agree on. Many studies have found that Americans hold the NPS in high esteem, and it really doesn't even matter your political party. They've even polled MAGA Republicans and found that 69% oppose reducing funding to federal lands. You can also tell how much Americans love the parks by how often they visit them. Amongst the 400 total parks that NPS takes care of, 325.5 million visits happened in 2023. That's a 4% increase from the year before, and they had 5 parks specifically breaking records on visitorship. Lots of people are visiting, and they're bringing lots of money with them. Outdoor recreation and tourism is a huge business. I know that's where pretty much all my money goes. It was found that in the neighboring communities around the national parks, visitors spent $26.4 billion in 2023, which again is an all-time high. We're talking gas, gift shops, nearby campgrounds, restaurants, tours, renting equipment, and lodging coming in as the most expensive. So even though people are visiting national parks and federal lands at an all-time high, they're bringing in all this money. The crazy part is that staffing is at an all-time low, and it's been steadily decreasing for many years, and that's before we even talk about what we're going to talk about. All right, I know that was a lot of graphs and numbers, but please stay with me. I just want us all to be on the same page that national parks are awesome. Most Americans do believe that they are worth protecting, and a lot of people love to visit them. I'm going to add a quick disclaimer though that I do not agree with everything that NPS and other federal agencies have done in the past. All national parks are on stolen land, and they have a very dark history of how the parks came to be. And I hope that moving forward, we can prioritize Indigenous voices and true land stewardship. The point is that even though the way we manage land is not perfect, most people can agree that it does in fact need to be managed, and it does need to be funded for that to happen. But I digress. I feel like I have a bit of a unique perspective because not only have I been to a lot of these parks, but I did work and live in one a few summers back, Yosemite National Park in California. Now, I wasn't a cool park ranger or anything like that, so I never worked for NPS. I just had a free summer, and it was something that I always wanted to do. I lived in a tent in Yosemite Valley, one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my entire life. It was awesome. But I also had a near-death experience there, so if you want to watch a video on that, go ahead, I'll link it above. It did kind of sour my memory of Yosemite, but again, I digress. But yeah, my job was in a camp store gift shop situation. And it taught me a lot about what it's like to be on the other side of things at a park. Not just a visitor, but someone who is there to help, to answer your questions, to get you what you need. And I'm just gonna say that a lot of the times it sucked. Yosemite is the 6th most visited national park in the US. It's not unusual to wait hours to get into the park. You need certain permits months in advance. There's no parking. You have to use the shuttle to get around. The campgrounds are full, the lodge is full, and unfortunately that makes people pretty cranky. I also just remember people being so unprepared, coming in desperate to get like shoes, a rain jacket, or like a tent for their camping trip. I get it, it's our job to sell them stuff when they're in a pickle, and I have made my fair share of camping mistakes, as many of you know, but yeah. And I don't want to be mean, but people would come in and ask me seriously the dumbest questions. I was asked, what time do they turn off all the waterfalls? And the amount of people that would park their car in the meadow, the fragile ecosystem of the meadow, or the amount of trash I would see on the trails, or people literally running towards bears, towards them. People keeping food in their cars and in their tents in active bear zones. We weren't even allowed to sell selfie sticks because of the fear that people would use them on like a cliff or the top of a waterfall and fall off and die. But we were allowed to sell this book that's about all of the poor people that have died in the park. We had a store copy, and on our breaks, we would all read it. And there are just so many tragic, avoidable deaths in there. It's so sad. And I'm just saying all of this to say that a lot of people in a small, fragile, and sometimes dangerous place, it takes people to facilitate that, okay? We want to facilitate fun, not death. We want people to have a good time in these parks, and they're already underfunded, already understaffed. So let's get back to the numbers and talk about what's going on right now. So this is all happening very fast in real time, so bear with me. But basically, a bunch of people are getting laid off in all areas of the government. Actually, 200,000. Most of these layoffs are people that fell into a probationary period, which could mean like new hires that are straight out of college, or it could just mean literally anyone that changed roles or locations. So it's just a very easy way to get rid of a lot of people very quickly. But let's zero in on people who are specifically working for the federal lands. We're talking 2,300 from the Department of Interior, with 800 working for the BLM and 1,000 for NPS, and a ton of people working at the Forest Service too. But those that are working on federal lands are doing so much more than we could possibly imagine. Cuts in funding and understaffing is immediately making me think of the visitors experience and how that's going to impact us. I'm thinking the craziness of Yosemite, but worse, all the time and in all of the parks. Not to over exaggerate, but without rangers and other employees, think about it. Longer lines at the gates to get in, fewer rangers at the visitor center to ask your questions to, less hours at the visitor center, so hopefully it's open while you're there, no one to clean the bathrooms, no one to run the campgrounds, no one to maintain the trails, no one's cleaning up trash, who's gonna take down the graffiti? We're talking closed trails, canceled permits, canceled reservations, long lines, nasty bathrooms, and honestly, that's just the surface level stuff. It's so much worse. A big thing that I'm thinking of is when I'm going on a backpacking trip. So I have to go pick up a permit at a ranger station. First, the permit is there to make sure that there's not too many people on the trail, it's not crowded, it's potentially keeping the ecosystem safer, which is a good thing in my opinion. But when I go to the ranger station, I have to physically talk to a ranger. They run me through all of the rules. They tell me about all the wildlife in the area. If there's bears, they tell me how to properly store my food. Am I doing a bear canister? They tell me about the weather. They give me a map. They make sure I know what I'm doing. And they make sure that if I don't come back, somebody's gonna come looking for me. Rangers keep us safe. They educate us on how to stay safe, and if something goes wrong, heaven forbid, they conduct search and rescue. That's of course not something to ever be relied upon, but they actually save lives. And if there's anything that my experience in Yosemite taught me, is that people can be dumb, and Mother Nature is not someone to be messed with. I genuinely worry about how the lack of education because of these funding cuts and this understaffing problem is actually going to put people in danger. And don't even get me started on the environmental impacts of these layoffs, but believe me, the work that is being done in these places besides tourism is so important. People are doing scientific research here. Wildlife population surveys, they're doing environmental assessments assessments. They're studying climate change and how it affects these ecosystems. They're monitoring air and water quality, all important things. Now, national parks are specifically usually used for recreation as like the main purpose, but there are other types of lands and agencies that are doing other things. For example, there's the US Forest Service. Yes, they do cut down trees. We need trees. I don't think anyone can deny that. But it is their job to do it as sustainably as possible so that we can continue to cut down trees. There's also the US Fishery and Wildlife Service. They support hunting animals, but they support doing that sustainably so that we can continue to do that. They're conserving habitat. They're protecting endangered species. It goes so much deeper. These are all good things that are happening that the public often gets confused about. But all of these employees, the ones that are getting laid off, they are fighting the good fight for all of us to benefit by managing these lands. And 28% of the land in the US is federal government land. And when you include other public lands, like state land or land owned by local governments, the number is closer to 40%. I feel like 40% of our land mass deserves some funding, right? Like, that's a lot of freaking land, and it does not run itself. If it's a tourism hotspot, we need people to manage all of those visitors, keep everybody safe, keep the land safe. But if it's more of a wild space, that still needs to be managed too. Wild spaces need protection from all of the other scary stuff that people are trying to do to it. For example, Trump's recent executive order called the Immediate Expansion of American Timber Production has ordered over 280 million acres of national forest and public lands to be cut down for timber. That's nearly 3 times the size of California. Trump is opening the door for logging in our public lands, and this is just the start. It's horrifying, it can't be undone, and the people that we trust to protect these places are being fired. All right, so let's talk about what we can do. First, we have to keep talking about this. If you have visited a national park, share your experience. Share what you did, share the joy that these places bring, and talk about how future generations deserve to have these experiences too. And going forward, if you start seeing something like a bathroom closure or a trail closure, share that too. Share how this is actively impacting real people on the trails today. I think it's also important to stay up to date on these issues because they are constantly changing. I'm gonna link all of the articles that I used for this video below and a few other YouTubers that did a really good job talking about this. I guess another option is that we can call our representatives. I will leave some resources on that below. You can call them, you can leave them a message, you can write them an email. Just tell them that you support federal lands and the people that take care of them. Donating, of course, if you have the funds, is also a great option. I'm gonna leave some links in the description on good places that I would donate. All of the ad revenue for the first month of this video is gonna go to the National Park Conservation Association, or NPCA. They're working really hard to cover all of the recent events and in general just do a really great job protecting the parks. So if you need a video to put on while you're like falling asleep or doing the dishes, rack up that ad revenue because I am going to be donating it to NPCA. There's also been some huge protests happening the last few days. If there's one in your area, that would be awesome to join, or you can make your own. So cool to be surrounded by other activists, and what a great way to show up for your public lands. Another idea, and one that I absolutely love, is calling in but not out other outdoor content creators. I actually had a fan named Isaac reach out to me and ask me if I was planning on talking about this issue on my channel. I definitely had been wanting to make a video on this, but I had a crazy month and it just kept getting away from me. So when Isaac reached out to me and very kindly asked me to speak up, it was kind of the push that I needed to finally do it. So I think that could be really cool if you go ahead and DM some of your favorite outdoor content creators and just ask them to talk about this issue. So yeah, call in some other people, especially if they have platforms. And then of course, while you are at the parks or on federal land, be respectful, do your research ahead of time in case there's nobody to help you out. Help out others if you can. Come prepared, leave no trace. Respect the trail closures. If they're closed, they're probably closed for a reason because there's nobody on the staff. Be safe and be kind to those workers who are left. They are working overtime for us, and yeah, please be nice. All right, guys, that's really all I have. So leave some more ideas in the comments on what we can do to help, because this is definitely the hardest part, is the action items. So leave them below. I tried to keep this one light as possible, but this is definitely dark times we're in. So hang in there, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.